I've had 4 OBEs in my lifetime, stretching over the course of approximately 40 years. My first one came in my youth when I was a teenager. My last 3 came while I was married, interspersed perhaps over 40, 45 years. I didn't meet anyone, but I did have a startling revelation about the largeness of our existence that is beyond the physical. It's a wild, weird experience. I haven't had OBEs for several years, but I'm going to begin having them again because I know how to induce them as I discovered the secret that works for me, and I will share that with you today. OBEs help us see a wider vision of the universe. I watched several videos of Chris Ramsey, Area 52, the last few days on his Monroe Institute experience with how to produce OBEs for ourselves. And I really enjoyed his experience and how it helped him enlarge his understanding that there is so much more to our life than just this physical, good and or bad as it is. We're more than the physical. The ancient teachings that the soul lives on after the body dies can be magnified, perhaps, probably not necessarily proven, but magnified when you have an OBE. There is something startling about it. My first OBE was when I was out moving pipe for a farmer. There were 4 of us that were living in the trailer, 4 of us teenage boys. And we would get up awfully early, 4:30 in the morning, to get out in the fields and move our 12 lines of pipe. We had 12 lines of pipe in the morning and 12 lines of pipe at night to move. That means we went to bed early as well. It was a rigorous job. I made good money for my day in that time. The morning that I had my OBE, I remember distinctly feeling my body. I had been extremely tired when I came in from moving my 12 lines. And so I laid down on the couch to take a nap. And the other guys went and had breakfast over in the kitchen area around the table. And Matt and Buck were the other 2. I can't remember where the other guy was, but he wasn't in the trailer. And I remember distinctly my body was getting, I was laying with my hands across my chest. And I felt myself getting stiffer and stiffer and stiffer to where I couldn't move. And then all of a sudden, poof, I floated right up out of my body, about a foot, 1.5 feet above myself. And I could distinctly, all at once, see down upon my body laying prone on the couch. I could see the trailer curved up at one end. I could see the entire curve, and I could see all the way through the trailer to where the other guys were sitting, Matt and Buck. And I could see the wall behind me, and I could see where the door was at the front wall, all at once. Now, it's easy to describe, but it's very hard to appreciate unless you've actually had that experience. I was seeing 360 degrees all around me. Now, at that time, I was a Mormon, and I felt like the devil possessed me. I was terrified. So what I did is I thought, if I can get those guys to touch me, to move my body, it will jolt me out of this. And I floated over to them, and I stood right in front of them through the table and started to talk to them. I said, "Hey, you guys, I'm over on the couch asleep, but I'm over here and I'm in trouble. Come and shake me. Come and shake me." And I kept talking to them and talking to them. And they, of course, were ignoring me and eating their breakfast. And so I went back over to my body and I looked down at my body and I said, now that's odd because I haven't died. I'm right here. And I remember trying to shake my foot to jolt me. And I thought, I wonder if I kick my feet out toward my feet, if my body will spread out, and then I will go back down into my body. And I remember distinctly thinking that way. I knew I was out of my body. I could see it. So I went over there and I tried to kick my feet out, and they did go out a little bit. And then as they did, my body kicked my foot, kicked my other foot. It just twitched it. And I instantly, boom, went back down into my body. Woke up and I ran over to Matt and Buck. I said, you guys, I've been yelling at you now for the last 5 or 6 minutes. I've been out of my body. I've been trying to wake you up because I was over there, but I came over here to try to talk. And they, of course, thought I was completely blitzoid. They said, nah, you're having a bad dream or whatever. But I knew it wasn't a dream. It was an actual vivid experience. Now, I believe the next time I had an OBE, my next 3 OBEs occurred in my second marriage while I was married to my second wife. Not all at once. No, I did not practice polygamy. And I was over at my mom and dad's. I do remember this one. I was in their living room. And I was laying with my head on my arms. I believe it was a holiday. And we had all eaten. And of course, Dad always took a nap after dinner on holidays and Sundays. And I stretched out on the shag rug and laid my hands on my head. And I remember getting extremely stiff. And I thought, uh-oh, it's coming again. I've had this feeling before when I was really, really tired out at the farm. And sure enough, my body popped up. Now, this second time, I didn't have my wits about me. How can you? I immediately fought it. I floated up maybe 6-8 inches, just tall enough to see everything around me, plus my body. I said, I want back down there. And so I went back down and woke up. Now, another time when my oldest brother Larry was up visiting us for the weekend, I was sitting there watching television, and Larry was on the couch sleeping, the little love seat. And his legs were dangling over, and then his head was kind of crunched. You went down in a U in the seat, and then your head was up on the other arm. So it wasn't totally comfortable. It's not meant for over a whole night's rest. But his foot started twitching. And I looked over, and his foot twitched. And then it twitched again. And then it twitched again. And I thought, wow. So I went over there and I asked him, are you having an out-of-body experience? Because that's what I do when I have an OBE. I twitch my foot. And then a few minutes later, he came up off that love seat and looked over at me, and he goes, yes, I was having an out-of-the-body experience. I was trying to tell you to touch my foot. Why didn't you touch my foot? I said, well, I saw it twitching. He said, yes, I know. I know you saw it twitching. I was trying to get you to touch my foot. Didn't you hear me talking to you? I said, no, but I didn't want you to lose your experience of having your OBE. but he saw and heard me talk to him out loud. Another time he said he was really tired. He worked for the post office, and he laid down at lunch under a tree, and he had an OB. He had his hands behind his back, and he said he had an OB, and he rose up about 2-3 feet, and he looked up behind him, and he saw a pair of feet, and it startled him so bad he came right back down in his body. Now, I have not seen any other beings or bodies or anything like that when I've had my OBs, but Larry has the feet of something. And I do believe that was his last OB. I think it startled him so bad he's never had OBs since then. His psychology is messed up, and you'll see what I mean if you look at Chris Ramsey's Area 52 podcasts on the Monroe Institute and his OBEs. My third OBE, I was in my bed downstairs, and I was extremely tired for some reason. I was laying on my back, and I recognized that now my first time I had an OBE, I told my wife about it, and she said, well, when I came home from work that day, she said, you look awfully tired. Are you going to have an OB? And I said, oh, I don't know. I might. She said, well, from what you've told me, you had an OB out at the farm, and you had an OB at your parents because you were really tired. So if you're really tired, you might have an OB. Well, I went and lay down on the bed, and just as you're falling asleep, you can sense that you're not asleep, but you're not awake. And I don't know how else to put that. You almost can't describe it. And it was then that my body started getting stiff. I could feel it. And I thought, oh, here we go. And then I told myself, I said, hey, go ahead and let it out. Just relax. And I just, came right up off my bed, and I could see my body laying there. And I was on my back, and I turned and looked at the headboard and looked at the clock and saw what time it was. And I thought distinctly, I'm going to remember what time it is so that when I get back, I'll see how long I was out of my body. And then I walked out of the bedroom. I stood up upright, and I felt like I was walking. I was moving. I didn't look down to see if I was walking, but I was moving, and I moved out of the doorway. I went through the little room in the basement toward the steps, and I went to the steps, and my steps go up, then they turn and go up. And I got up the first flight to the landing, and there's a window looking outside. And I stopped at that window and looked out the window. And I thought, you know what? I don't want to get too far away because I don't know, I don't know what's going to happen. So I turned back around. I went back down the steps. I went back into the bedroom. And I remembered that I kicked my feet out once, and it settled me down in the body. So as I got to my bed, I turned around and kicked my feet out, and I went right back into my body, and I woke up. And the first thing I did is I turned around and looked at the clock, and the time I looked at the clock before I woke up. That's what I did. When I came back in, I looked at the time again. I thought, all right, 1:30. And then I kicked out, laid down in my body. And when I woke up, I turned and looked at the clock. And it was like 3:18 or 338 or something like that. It didn't match at all. Just didn't match at all. And so I never told anyone about that OBE. It wasn't until years later that when I told my wife that, she said, well, there's your missing time. You have some missing time. And that so overwhelmed me because OBEs are associated with seeing aliens, right? I don't recall seeing anyone, but then it's not out of the impossible. The time element did not match, however. My fourth OBE that I remember was I was laying upstairs in my living room couch, and I was extremely tired. I had spent the night doing some research, and so I'd read a lot. I'd doing some writing. I was cross-referencing. I do believe I was typing, and I was super duper tired. And I realized, when I get tired, I have OBEs. And so I laid down on the couch, and it did not take me very long at all. Being so tired, I just simply, and it was late at night. In fact, it was early morning. It was like 1:30 a.m. And I popped right out of my body. And my body just started floating up and up and up and up and up toward the ceiling. And I got right to the ceiling, and I kept going. And I saw the wood through the ceiling. As I kept going up, I saw the insulation. I passed through the insulation. I passed through the shingles, and I came all the way out of the house. And I kept going up. And I was floating, and the house started to recede from me. And my view was 360 degrees. I could see my neighbor's house, their metal roof. I could see the field next to us and the house up on the corner. And I kept going higher and higher and higher. And I could see the other house out in the field. And I began to see the neighborhood. And I kept going higher and higher and higher. And I got high enough that I had a really decent view over the entire neighborhood. And I remember something to the effect that Shirley MacLaine had once said, if you're having an OBE, be sure and look at the silver cord. She's been to the moon. She flew all over space. She really had some dramatic experiences. Not that I was trying to imitate her. I was having my own set of experiences. But I didn't remember, and I kind of did this a little bit, but I was looking and I couldn't see a silver cord. And if that cord severs, then you die. That's what she said. And it startled me so bad. Now, I just stopped and I didn't have to turn my head to look to see whatever direction. I would just focus. I wanted to look up the street, and I could see all the way across the street. It was below me, and I could see as far off as it went. And then I looked the other way. I focused on the other way. I could still see the other side, and all the way in front and behind me and below me, my own house, and it was just small. It was small. I was up several hundred feet. And I looked the other way, and I couldn't see that silver cord, and it startled me. So once I got startled, I dropped it. Here comes the house. Here comes the house. Here comes the house. Here comes the house. And I went right through the roof again, down through the living room, and into my body, and woke up. My key, at least so far as I've heard, is to be really, really tired. When I'm lacking sleep, when I'm extra tired, or I've worked very, very hard physically or mentally, emotionally, when I'm tired, I have OBEs fairly easy if I think about them. So that's one possibility. Now, Chris Ramsey, he says the Monroe Institute, and many others have said this, they let you listen to music and all. Or not mute, well, yeah, mute tone, etc. But that they do it through sound, which I have no doubt works because Chris Ramsey had his OBE, not while he was at the Institute, but after he was done for that week and then in his house. But others have described the Monroe Institute as having come out of their bodies because of the sounds that they were hearing. I've never done that way yet, but I'm going to. I'm going to try it. I think I'm ready. It has been at least 20 years since I've had an OBE. I just haven't pursued it. I'm not necessarily startled anymore or scared of it, but that's been my experience with OBEs. So thanks for letting me share those with you. Hit the like and subscribe. It helps my algorithm for me. I appreciate all your participation and enthusiasm. And I will catch up to you later as I find more stuff to share with you. Have a great night, everybody. Hopefully you're enjoying your summers. Get out and enjoy your summers.